50th reunion. Geez, I better go back and look at the yearbook or I won't remember anyone's name. I may not recognize anybody because they're probably not going to look much like their senior photo. I don't look much like mine anymore, I don't think. You know, a day is really long if you look at it in terms of the speed of thought. In 16 or 17 hours, you can think about a lot of stuff. But until this reunion notice showed up, there are a lot of guys from high school that I haven't thought about at all for a long time. If you think about it, there are guys I met on the first day of kindergarten, and we were together all the way through graduation. That's a lot of years together. There was Mike. He was one of the 12-year guys. We were in scouts together in junior high and high school. Went on a lot of camping trips, including a week-long backpack through the high Sierras. Carried a week's worth of food with you, as well as everything else in your Kelty backpack. At least we didn't have to carry a week's worth of water. In those days, you could still drink out of the mountain streams. I guess you can't do that anymore. Water's not as clean as it used to be. In high school, Mike was the one who introduced me to sports cars. He and his older brother had several Austin Healey's. I think years later he was president of the British Car Club in the Valley. One day he invites me to come play handball with him. I'd never played handball. We did that for about a year before we went off to college. I couldn't have been more surprised the next time I saw him. I'm walking across campus and I see a group of students and maybe some faculty, and they're carrying around a big black coffin. I wander over and there's Mike as one of the pallbearers, and I say, "Hey Mike, what's this all about?" And he says, "We're protesting Dow Chemical. They're the makers of napalm. Napalm's the stuff that we're using in Vietnam. It's supposed to be about clearing out jungle vegetation so that we can find the VC. Only the problem is that they light it and drop it from airplanes, and it indiscriminately lands on everyone, which includes women, children, and old people. If it lands on you, it sticks to your flesh and you can't get it off, and you just sit there while it burns a hole through you. The worst kind of pain and torture possible. And Dow knows this is how it's being used, and they need to be shut down for allowing something that awful to happen so they can make a buck." I don't recall ever seeing Mike again after that. In fact, I hadn't really thought about him again until today. Bill was another 12-year acquaintance. A year or two out of high school and he gets drafted. He pulls a conscientious objector, which took a lot of guts in those days. Fortunately, they were all Quakers on his mother's side. If he'd been a Baptist, he would have been in trouble. He ends up working in Letterman Hospital, and one day he's working with some PTSD guys, way before the condition was recognized and the term was used. Even without the acronym, these guys were totally wasted mentally. So Bill's doing some training with them in the hopes that when they get mustered out, because they're no longer of any use to the military, they might have some vocational skills that would allow them to go back to work instead of going on welfare or ending up homeless. He's teaching stained glass, where they put different colored pieces of glass together to make a picture. All the joints are held together with lead strips. And the surprise about this is that when he gets out of the service, he starts a shop doing stained glass repair and renovation for all the old cathedrals and historic government buildings around D.C., and he does this for the next 40 years until he retires. Who would have guessed that the CO guy would end up the only practical beneficiary of the vocational ed program he was teaching? Ed was a neighbor of Bill's. Only knew him through Bill and only met him in high school. Ed was a strange guy, not all that sociable. By the time he's finished with high school, he's got long black hair and a full beard. He's wearing heavy black boots and an old fatigue jacket. Didn't see him at all after high school, but the story is that when the computer lab at the Cal State was firebombed, someone who looked an awful lot like Ed was seen running on the rooftop of a neighboring classroom wing. Didn't meet Mark until high school. I've never met a kinder, more sensitive guy than Mark. We played a lot of football in those days. Lots of times it was on the big grassy ellipse in front of the high school administration building. In those days, the high school didn't have a chain-link fence around it. The thing about Mark, who played on the basketball team and the tennis team, was that he understood that sometimes winning wasn't everything. I was one of the worst football players around. In those informal games, every player was eligible, so after the ball was hiked, everyone ran downfield and the quarterback threw to whoever was open. I was such an inept player that most of the time the defense would send in another rusher and let me run downfield uncovered. So I was in the open most of the time, and I still didn't get the ball thrown to me. But Mark saw it differently. He felt that it was a better choice to give me the benefit of the doubt, and he'd toss the ball to me. And most of the time I'd drop it, and then he'd do it again on the next down. Eventually I'd either catch the ball or we'd run out of downs, but I always felt that he believed in me. Several years after graduation, I ran into Mark during summer vacation. He was home from school and we got together. By this time, he was a committed anarchist. He genuinely believed that the U.S. and all other world governments were totally corrupt and that the only real solution for the citizens of the planet was to adopt anarchy as a system of non-government. He was dead serious about this. The last time I saw him, he'd shaved off his eyebrows. He said he did this because he was trying to see who he really was, and the eyebrows got in the way. A few months later, he put a bullet in his brain, and that was the end of Mark.
Some took action when they saw sad and tragic wrong. Some dove too deep and found they couldn't hold their breath that long. Some did bad things, even though their motives weren't so wrong. Some accepted their situation and they came out strong. All kinds of people, all kinds of friends. They were in my life and they'll be there till the end. They were all kinds of people I have known. Some winds blow steady and strong. I felt them my whole life long. Some winds blow in squalls. I feel them most of all. All kinds of people, all kinds of friends. They were in my life and they'll be there till the end. They were all kinds of people I have known.
Sheila was one of my 2 roommates in my first year at Mills. She and I used to go off campus and into town for dinner every week or so. I remember the times when we went up to Berkeley to this place called Café Midi. The place was filled with intellectuals discussing politics. A few of their ideas got some traction, but most were too extreme to become mainstream. But some nights they had live music. There were a lot of musical groups forming in those days. Nothing like that going on now. It seemed like everybody was learning how to play the guitar and was writing their own songs. Some of the groups were pretty good. Most of them are totally lost to history now. The surprising one was Sheila. She didn't have aspirations to be a successful singer, but when she opened her mouth, we had gone to this cafe where a band was playing.
The sun to shine, make the stars all mine. Babe, you got me running around, I feel turned upside down, my head is spinning so. Babe, I'm still in love with you, why can't you love me too? I wish you wouldn't go. Girl, if you would, you could make my life worthwhile, make my whole world smile.
We had gone there several times. In fact, enough times that we pretty much could sing along with all the songs that the house band played. One night, their lead singer is late to the gig. I think he got pulled over by the police for expired tags on his car or something, and they gave him a big hassle because he looked the part of a student leftist, like he might have been on his way to plant a bomb or something. So the band's looking befuddled as their start time arrives and they've got no lead singer. Sheila sees this, and of course she gets up from our table and walks over to them and says that she knows most of their material, and if they want to let her sit in, they could start their set. So being the let it all hang out types that they were, they started their first song.
Hold on. Can we slow this down a bit? Maybe just a little slower? Girl, if you would, you could. You'd make my life worthwhile. You'd make my whole world smile. Girl, if you would, you could. You'd make the sun to shine. You'd make the stars all mine.
complete fluke. There's this famous Hollywood record producer in the club that night up from LA visiting relatives, and he goes nuts over her. When the regular singer finally shows up and she's done, he invites her over to his table and talks to her for a long time, and eventually this encounter leads to a recording contract that launches a singing career for her. All around, there are these struggling musicians and singers and songwriters pouring their hearts out, and she's the one who gets the big break. And then there's my old friend, the Berkeley boy. He was one of the musical strugglers who never got it all put together quite right. Tried hard, tried different approaches, but trying isn't always enough. It takes more than mere effort to succeed at some things.
I used to